Hello and welcome to Season 2 of Ecig 101. So, yeah, there's been a bit of a large gap, larger than I'd thought there was going to be, between the end of Season 1, which was all about giving up smoking, moving on to pods, little starter kits and stuff, between the end of Season 1 and the beginning of Season 2. In fact, there's so much of a gap, it's now getting close to Christmas. It's the 30th of November, this is being recorded in 2022. So, Season 2 is essentially the progression, moving on from the end of Season 1, going into what we would consider in the vaping scene as the more advanced kits, the larger kits like AIOs and stock coil sub-ohm tank kits, the much larger capacity style of vaping, and the kind of vaping that you probably see some people, if you're still in a pod kit and you're watching this, you probably see some people doing this down the high street. Yeah, it's that kind of vaping, but the step up from pods isn't straight from pods to something like this, because the middle of the market, which is what we're concentrating on for Season 2, the middle of the market has two distinct variations between these styles of big kits and this style of AIO. And what we're going to be covering in Season 2 is not just the difference between stock coil sub-ohm tank kits, which is what this is, and AIOs, which is what this is. We're also going to be covering what goes on inside these, in other words, batteries and battery safety, which is actually the next episode. We're also going to be covering glossary and terms, like I call this a mod. Why is it called a mod? Why is it not called a battery? Stuff like that. So the whole premise with Season 2, if you're an experienced vapor watching this, you're not going to find much use in watching this if you're an experienced vapor already. The whole point in Season 2 is for people that have just finished watching Season 1 or are still on their pods and starter kits after a couple of months, and they're thinking, well, what about these? Should I start using these? What are these things all about? What's an AIO? Where did that come from? What's an AIO? What are AIOs all about? What's inside a coil for a stock coil sub-ohm tank? Why is it called a stock coil sub-ohm tank? What about batteries and battery chargers? Fuck this! I'm going to stick with my pod. This is the thing about the middle of the vaping scene, the advanced vapor who steps away from pods and goes on to the bigger tanks, goes on to the bigger mods, goes on to the bigger batteries. It's a big step. It's a very big step, going from a small pod kit to something like this, or even a larger AIO like this. And the whole point of Season 2, we're going to be starting off, next episode, all about batteries, everything to do with batteries. What are batteries about? What's with the different sizes? Basic battery safety, how to rewrap, look after batteries. Episode 3 is going to be about general terms, and it's basically going to be a glossary. It's essentially what Episode 3 is going to be. And then once we hit Episode 4, 5, 6, and 7, and going into the end of Season 2, we're going to be covering this separately, and we're also going to be covering AIOs separately as well, and comparing both styles of advanced vaping against each other. What's temp control? What does temp control do? What's variable wattage? What's variable voltage? What's bypass? All the basic questions are going to be answered in this series. It's going to be a long one. Compared to Season 1, this is probably going to be twice the length, watchable wise anyway, than Season 1 was, because there's going to be a whole lot of different things to cover in what is going to be Season 2. Looking forwards, going into Season 3, instead of going into the hobbyist vaping, which is what Season 3 was going to be, instead we're going to be looking at e-liquids. dedicated towards e-liquids. What goes into e-liquids? What are e-liquids all about? How do you make your own e-liquids? And about a month and a half ago, I flew over to Poland to visit Chemnavatic, who's a nicotine distiller based in Poland, strangely enough. That's why I flew over there. And they've answered a lot of the very, very technical questions to do with nicotine salts, free-base nicotine, the future of nicotine salts, how is nicotine made, all about the flavours. They've answered all the difficult questions to do with season 3. So the way this is going to pan out, if you're watching season 2 from the very beginning, and you're going to be watching this in the weekly dual parters that are going to be running all the way through December, going into the middle of January, by the time, let's say you've bought an AIO at the very beginning of season 2, by the time season 2 ends and season 3 begins, you'll have all the basic information you need in order to run your AIO or your dual battery box mod, take care of your batteries, take care of your tank. You'll know what's inside those coils. You'll have a fair idea what all that menu stuff is all about, and you should be ready to basically sit back and enjoy all about e-liquids for season 3, which is coming kind of mid-January or end of January 2023, and it should be running into the beginning of spring 2023. So here we go, folks, kicking off season 2 of Ecig 101, going into episode 2, which is all about batteries.